For today's math instruction, we're going to be in our math instruction book on pages 272 and 273. Today, we're going to learn how to read and interpret picture graphs. So, this word interpret just means to find the meaning. So, when we interpret something, we're finding the meaning of it. So, we're going to try and find the meaning of picture graphs. Remember from our last lesson that picture graphs show data or information using pictures. Remember that a picture graph has a title. So here's our title, favorite season, and a lot of them will have a key. Jamie asked students in his school to choose their favorite season. The picture graph shows how students answered. How many more students chose summer than chose winter as their favorite season? So here's the question that we will be trying to answer as we go through this picture graph. How many more students chose summer than chose winter as their favorite season? One thing to keep in mind about a picture graph is that it does have a key. In this case, each of these green smiley faces stands for 5 students. So one green smiley face stands for 5 students. So we can use pictures to help us understand that. So we can think, okay, every time I see a green smiley face, that actually equals 5 people. Every time you see one, it equals 5 people. Or you can use a number line. So remember that each smiley face stands for 5 students. So you can skip count by 5s. So for example, if we go over here to winter, each stands for 5, 5, 10, 15, 20. So 20 students chose winter. If we look at spring, remember we can skip count by 5, 5, 10, 15. 15 students chose spring as their favorite season. We're going to skip count by 5s because each smiley stands for 5. 5, 10, 15, 20, 25, 30. So 30 students chose summer as their favorite season. And then for fall, once again, we can skip count by 5s. 5, 10, 15, 20, 25. And I know I mentioned in the last lesson that sometimes I do find it helpful to put the actual numbers next to the symbols. That way I don't have to continue counting every single time. So again, our question is, Jamie asked students in his school to choose their favorite season. The picture graph shows how students answered. How many more students chose summer than chose winter as their favorite season? Let's look at where it says connected. It wants us to solve the problem. Question 2 asks, what does the problem ask you to find? So specifically, we are being asked to find how many more students chose summer than chose winter as their favorite season. So that's what we're being asked to find for question 2. Complete the key. Each green smiley face stands for blank students. So again, I can refer back to my key here and I can see that each green smiley stands for 5 students. Question 4, complete the table. Find the number of students who chose winter and the number who chose summer. So in this table, our first column shows us a favorite season, and for winter, there were 4 smiley faces. Remember, that doesn't mean 4 students chose winter. That's the number of smiley faces. We have to multiply that by 5 because each of these smiley faces stands for 5 students. So there are a total of 20 students who chose winter. For summer, again, it wants to know the number of smiley faces. So not how many students, but how many smiley faces. And there are 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So there are 6 smiley faces. We have to multiply that by 5 because according to our key, each green smile stands for 5 students. So I know that 6 times 5 equals 30. Now it asks us to complete the equation to find out how many more students chose summer than chose winter. So again, we can see that more students chose summer than winter. We want to figure out how many more. So this will be a subtraction problem. It will be 30 minus 20, which equals 10. So 10 more students chose summer than chose winter. The other thing that you can do is you can look at summer and winter and you can cross off the same amounts. So winter we had 4 smileys. So for summer we can also cross off 4 smileys and then we can count how many are remaining. Well, there are 2 smiles remaining. That's 2 more than what winter had, and each of these smiles is worth 5. So 5, 10. That's another way that you could get your answer. Question 6. Explain why the key is important when you are solving a problem that has a picture graph. So again, we need our key down here. And the key is important because it tells us the value of each symbol. And the key can vary from picture graph to picture graph. Sometimes each symbol is worth 1. Sometimes it's worth 2. In this case, it's worth 5. So you need to have a key so that you know the value of the symbol. Let's look under Try It. Use the picture graph on the previous page and what you just learned to solve these problems. Show your work on a separate sheet of paper. Question 7 asks, how many students did not choose spring or summer? So for this question, we are not looking at spring and we are not looking at summer. We want to know how many students did not choose spring or summer. So you could do this one of 2 ways. First, you could count winter. You could count 5, 10, 15, 20. And you could count fall, 5, 10, 15, 20, 25. And you could add those 2 numbers. So 20 plus 25. And in my ones place, 0 plus 5 equals 5. And in my tens place, 2 plus 2 equals 4. So you could add winter and fall, and you'd get a total of 45 students. That's the first way that you could do that problem. The second way that you could do this problem, again, it's asking how many students did not choose summer or fall. So, I'm sorry, spring or summer. So we want to get rid of spring or summer. The other way you could do this is that you could just count all of the remaining smiley faces under winter and fall by 5. So 5, 10, 15, 20, 25, 30, 35, 40, 45. And our last question asks, how many more students chose spring or fall than chose summer? So it wants us to look at some of this data together. It wants us to look at spring or fall together. So for spring, we have 5, 10, 15 students. And for fall, we have 5, 10, 15, 20, 25 students. So again, what we can do to find those 2 is we can add them. And in my ones place, 5 plus 5 equals 10. Carry my 1. 1 plus 1 equals 2, plus 2 equals 4. So for spring or fall, there were 40 students. For summer, there's 5, 10, 15, 20, 25, 30. So for summer, there are 30 students. It wants us to tell how many more chose spring or fall than summer. So this would be a subtraction problem. So 40 minus 30, and I know that that equals 10. So again, the other way that you could have done this is you know that we have to look at spring or fall. So we're going to have to put them together. So you could have counted all the smileys for spring or fall by 5, 5, 10, 15, 20, 25, 30, 35, 40. So for spring and fall, you knew that there were 40. And then for summer, you can count 5. Let's finish this first. You can count 5, 10, 15, 20, 25, 30, and you can find the difference that way. All right, head on back to your Google Classroom for today's assignment.